I am recording. Ba, ba, ba.
I am recording. Ba, ba, ba.
I am recording. Ba, ba, ba. What's up, everyone? Welcome to the 600 and... Oh, are we all recording? I'm recording. Ba, ba, ba.
I am recording.
I'm recording. I'm recording. Ba, ba, ba.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to the 602nd episode of the Pokemon Podcast. It's super effective. I'm your host, Steve. With me is Hannah.
I am here. I am recording. Ba, ba, ba.
Perfect. Bobby also here.
Hi. This is a great start. We are all recording. We've confirmed we're all recording.
No issues this episode.
Good start.
We have a very Pokemon TCG and a very Pokemon heavy Pokemon Go episode. Hey, you know this is a Pokemon podcast.
Sometimes it's less of one. Every once in a while.
So we have Bobby here because of the TCG, and Hannah's always here. So it works out. You won't believe what's going to happen this episode. You thought we were done talking about Van Gogh? You're wrong. We have more Van Gogh to talk about.
Fun stuff.
That Pikachu will not leave us alone. Okay, well, before we get to all of that stuff, there was some breaking news. Oh, I guess we're going to dive right into news. Breaking news this weekend. Nice. There were some more disqualifications at a Pokemon tournament, and people were upset, and the same arguments get thrown around. Arguments that I disagree with, although I do find myself pretty open-minded, so maybe somebody could convince me otherwise, but it's been the same argument for a couple of years, and I still I still have my opinion. But this past weekend was it was the biggest European tournament to date, and 2 players got disqualified for having the same exact Pokemon. Now, I know what you're thinking. A lot of people use a program called PKHex or whatever to make Pokemon. This was a bit different. Which the news here, maybe I guess the news takeaway maybe isn't people got disqualified. That happens all the time because of using unauthorized software. I think the actual news to take away here is that this is the first time this kind of hack check happened, which is the more interesting thing to take away. That the hack checking has gotten better, or they have at least known about it and implemented it. And so what happened is Alex, who I've actually, when I did like a YouTube series with a bunch of YouTube creators, the Draft League thing, Alex was a part of that. And I think I did, he streams on Twitch, very nice guy from my interactions, I believe. And then I don't know who the other person was, but they were both on the same team. They're sponsored. Which is another conversation that we could have about sponsored players going to an event, but that's fine. That's not bad. It's just, it's a little weird because the Pokemon doesn't like it, specifically because they don't like to have sponsors.
Oh, they don't like sponsored players being in their tournaments or in their competitions?
No, they just don't like to have like sponsored players on their like video because they have to cover up like the logos and stuff.
Got it. Okay.
And then if you're sponsoring somebody and you're covering up the logos, then it's kind of like
pointless.
Right. Again, a whole other conversation. So they got disqualified for having a clone Pokemon. Now, not to be confused with Pokemon the first movie where Mewtwo clones a bunch of Pokemon, but you could compare it to that. So they both had a Ting Lu that had the same OT and the same player ID number. And you don't need to really have a hack check service to go, you can only catch one Ting Lu per file. Therefore, this was obviously cloned. I would assume, although it doesn't say here, nor would the Pokemon Company come out and say, here's the exact issue. I would assume that it was cloned using the Smeargle, which Hannah, Al, and I talked about last week, the Smeargle thing. They said there was going to be a January update, 3.0.1. It is now January 28th. There is no update yet.
3 days left.
3 days left. I'm assuming they're going to take into account the Smeargle.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised they haven't fixed that yet. And I think that maybe one of the reasons they caught this is because they're paying extra close attention because they haven't fixed that yet.
Well, I don't understand how the two of them that are teammates didn't think that was going to get checked or like that was going to be noticed.
They both got their Ting Lu from another player on their team. And so that player gave them both the same Ting Lu that they duplicated or copied or cloned or however you want to say it.
But are they not talking to each other or like looking at each other's teams if they know they're getting a Pokemon? Unless do they really think they were getting a legitimate Pokemon and not a clone? Because if I'm getting a clone Pokemon, I'm going to make sure that the other people on my team aren't also getting the same cloned Pokemon.
Well, if you didn't know that it was a cloned Pokemon and you weren't talking to your teammates about your exact team makeup the night before.
And they've never done a check like this before?
As far as we know.
Most of
the time there isn't a clone hack that people can take advantage of. The Smeargle thing is kind of new.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, you could bet. I hate talking about like I hate talking about hacked Pokemon because then it leads to like how do you hack, and I don't want to like direct people on how to do that stuff. But the reality is like people are getting disqualified because of this. So like that's really the conversation.
Right.
It's not like how to do it.
Sure.
It's like people are doing it. That being said, you can, when you make a hacked Pokemon, you can give it whatever IVs you want. You can give it whatever level you want. You could give a Pikachu Thunder, or you could give a Pikachu like Flamethrower if you wanted to, right? Like you could, but that wouldn't pass a hack check very well because Pikachu can't learn Flamethrower. That would be very obvious in a hack check. So you ideally want to quote unquote hack a Pokemon that would look like a real Pokemon, which is pretty easy to do. Now, if like an oversight would be, oh, you caught this Ting Lu in Kitakami. Like that can't happen. Or this Ting Lu has 2 perfect IVs, which also cannot happen because Ting Lu has to be guaranteed 3 perfect IVs. Sometimes it'll have 4 because one rolls to be perfect, but it has to have at least 3 perfect IVs. The thing that again caught this was the OT was the same and the player ID was the same, and that's actually impossible to have that. I don't know if Pokealex and the other dudes' teams were like the same. That's not uncommon. Literally an hour before we started recording, the person who won EUIC ended up using Wolfie's team, who won the team, who won last week at, it wasn't Columbus. Oh my gosh, I can't remember. That was the biggest tournament in the United States up to this point, whatever city that was. But they, from my understanding, rebuilt the team from Wolfie's Patreon. They because Wolfie will post his teams after they report. It'll go in depth of like, this is the IVs, this is the nature. So they rebuilt the team. So like, well, so then the conversation happens of, this is what always happens. I think Hannah made a good point, and I almost forgot it, of like, this is the first time we've heard of this kind of check. And I think the reason we hear about this stuff is because these players have such a big audience. Like Alex is a relatively like has a YouTube a relatively big streamer, right? And if you go back to Worlds, where a bunch of people got disqualified, there were a lot of bigger YouTubers or streamers a part of that complaining. So what I'm saying is, like, you could have a person who maybe it's their first tournament, maybe they've done very well, they don't stream on YouTube, they don't stream on Twitch, they hacked a Steelix and they got disqualified, and they go on Twitter to complain, but they're not a huge player, so people don't see that.
Sure. Yeah, that's true. But also at the same time, so were they playing matches at the same time? They must have been, right? Because like
they both got
otherwise-
disqualified the same round, which I think was round 7.
Okay.
They're not like
Otherwise,
banned. They just
they
got disqualified from this tournament.
Like he could have they could have traded one of them to the other one. Like if they're not playing at the same time, couldn't they
No,
have...
the boxes are locked.
Oh, that's right. Of course. Right.
Yeah.
Once it starts, it's all locked, right? So you wouldn't be able to. Right. Okay.
Yeah.
It's not surprising for players on a team to have similar teams.
Mm-hmm.
I even remember like Wolfie last year at Worlds was like, "Oh, me and my friend are using the same team that we built together."
Right.
And they both didn't do that well, so maybe it wasn't that great of a team. Maybe.
Right. But yeah, the OT and the ID being exactly the same is different. But I was just thinking like it might not happen that often. It also just might not happen that often because it just so happens that two people don't typically have the same like Pokemon at the same time, as well. So it might be harder to see that. Like that's kind of surprising that two people on the same that are on the same team just had the same clone Pokemon. I don't know. I feel like that probably wouldn't happen that often.
Well,
I'm not saying people wouldn't have clone Pokemon. I'm saying that bad combination of the two of them on the same team having the same clone Pokemon.
Yeah, that makes the news extra fun in a way. But I mean, like I said, the clone thing is relatively new. It is something they usually try to kind of minimize and fix as soon as possible. So these aren't the kinds of exploits we usually see. It's usually gent Pokemon, which is similar but not the same. With regards to the fact that they are both kind of popular, bigger players, I think that probably does play a factor in it, but also this is a big tournament with a lot of people watching, and when somebody who's gotten far enough gets disqualified for some reason or another, people are going to be talking about it, which is one of the reasons we have seen a lot of disqualifications pop up over the last year or so, regardless of who it is, I think. A lot of people don't believe they're going to check for illegitimate Pokemon.
Last week was Charlotte's regionals. This week was Liverpool regionals. So not EUIC. I misspoke there.
Still a big one.
Still the big. I think it was bigger than last year's EUIC because of players attending. Attendance has been up for this game. I don't know if I don't know if listeners know this, but attendance for playing in person has been way up, and that in itself is news too, because people like Terra as a battle mechanic, and some like it more than Dynamax. So that the player count is up. So of course the argument is always, and this is what I disagree with, that players shouldn't have to build a team. Building a team takes too much time. What does it matter? The reason that people PK a Hex or Gen Pokemon is because and I agree with that point. I do agree with the point that your skill of building a team does not translate to your skill of playing. And I say this all the time because I think when people want to get into competitive Pokemon, they think that they need to do both. And they think that because they built the team, they will be better with it, or because they're using a rental team, they're not going to be as good. Those are just two different skills. You can be really, really good at playing the game and be very bad at understanding like why a certain Pokemon, like you can understand like, oh, this Pokemon needs like EVs and defense to make it bulkier, but like that calculation side of things is a little bit more complicated. I see it all the time with like other creators doing like raid builds, and their EVs don't make sense when and that's like, that's not to like shame them. It's like they just don't understand why HP would be more important here than defense, or why defense would be more important than HP, or like why we're putting a nature here, but not maxing out that like defense. And I get they're just trying to be helpful and stuff, but like no fault to them, it's really complicated. Like when I talk about jump points when it comes to EVs, and I literally know this because I paid a world-class coach to teach me like EVs and competitive Pokemon, and I paid him for 6 months, and that was Paul Ruiz. I can never say his last name. And it was very, very helpful. But like when I bring up jump points, most listeners listening are like, what's a jump point? It's like when you get like a free EV by giving your Pokemon a specific amount of EVs. So like it's very complicated. And you do see a lot of these players that compete at a very high level. Like normally when they win, they'll be like, oh, thank you 8 people because they like helped with the team or they helped with the idea. Like it's very complicated.
Right.
I don't like buy the argument though, like, oh, it's so time consuming, because they've just lowered the barrier so much. And like in the case of Ting Lu, you can get Ting Lu in like 15 minutes. Like you could just Google Ting Lu swords, go around the map real quick, collect the was it 8 swords, 10 swords, and then Ting Lu pops up, and then you catch Ting Lu. Like it's like out of all the Pokemon, that was the one you got disqualified for. One of the easier ones to get, honestly.
Yeah. They really have lowered the barrier to building a Pokemon. That's one thing that I have been astonished by every time I'm working on the raid builds, is that it can take 15 minutes.
Right.
Or less to build a specific Pokemon with specific EVs. That is not how it used to be.
Oh,
and
for
they
sure.
continue to lower it even more with the Blueberry Academy and the item printer, because now even Terra isn't really hard anymore. I'm not someone who's done a ton of Terra raids. I did not have 999 Terra crystals of every single type pre-Blueberry, but I sure do now.
Well, how many Pokemon are these people typically, are the competitors typically building though? I mean, they're not just building like a team, right? I'm assuming that they're building multiple teams because they're practicing with different stuff and they're trying out different combinations of things and stuff like that. So you're building.
I am assuming they're only building one team maybe a week or not. I think a lot of these players are practicing in Pokemon Showdown.
Right. Okay.
Because you can get like more matches done, and it is easier to build a Pokemon there. Pokemon Showdown is a battle simulator. Even if you're just buying the game to do matches and go to tournaments, you can get Pokemon from other people. Like they both got this Ting Lu from the same guy. Unfortunately, the guy made a clone of the Ting Lu. It cost them and gave them disqualification. But like that's the weirdest part about Pokemon, and I say weird in like a good way, is if you don't have the resources, you can trade. Or like if Hannah was like, hey, I want to build a Dragalge for an upcoming raid, but I don't have electric Terra type shards, she could trade me her Dragalge. I can give it the Terra. I could even like teach it Acid Spray, and then I could like trade it back, right? Like there is so many ways you can build a Pokemon that isn't just on you, the player yourself. Like, and then I saw the argument of like, people are like, well, you have to breed for perfect IVs. And it's like, why it's 2024. Why are we using the argument about breeding for IVs? You can literally walk into any of the deli birds and just
Mhm.
buy a bottle cap.
Right.
And just bottle cap it.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're, well, Hannah so nicely gave me a Clodsire way back when, at some point when we were doing raids for something. But you had bred a bunch of them, hadn't you? Of the
Yeah, I was just
Paldean
having
Loopers?
fun there.
Yeah.
Going for a whole bunch of perfects there, but
That was really nice.
I think I still have some. If anybody's looking for perfect Clodsire. But
Finally, that's gonna win EUIC when it comes around.
It's great in raids. It's great for certain raids.
golden bottle caps are much easier to get, again, especially with the item printer. I have many more of them now than I did before Blueberry. But also, then people will bring up the fact that not every Pokemon needs perfect IVs. And it's hard to get the ones with the 0 IV exactly where you need it sometimes.
Ting Lu is probably one of those Pokemon that would want a 0 IV in speed, yes. Not in attack, because it's a physical Pokemon, so you don't have to worry about that. Although I haven't seen foul play on anyone's team sheets in like the last like 6 months, so even like the I need 0 in attack, like there's not a lot of foul plays going around. Maybe some confusion because of like Hurricane or something, I guess.
So maybe this teammate of theirs just had a Ting Lu with 0 speed and both of them wanted it.
Yeah, I think, you know, there's probably another conversation to be had about like how optimal IVs will be a deciding factor in some matches.
Mhm.
I think a lot of players, when I say a lot of players, I think the people who are like complaining, which I feel like is all of Twitter or whatnot. I see this all the time when I do competitive, is when I like lose a match or when something goes poorly. The first recommendation from like Twitch chat is like, you should change this move or you should change this. And I think when you do lose a match, you kind of have to walk away and say like, did I lose this because I should have had more defense EVs, or did I lose this because I was calm instead of jolly or whatever, right? And a lot of the times the answer is no. And even if the answer is like, oh, I lost the speed tie, like we were both jolly or we were both timid, I lost the speed tie, there's probably a turn earlier where you could have done something different so you weren't in that situation.
Mhm.
And I think you see that a lot with just like when you watch these big tournaments on Twitch or YouTube and you're like watching Twitch chat or YouTube chat go, you got a lot of like armchair backseating
Of course.
gamers that are like, man, what a bad play this person in the top 2 of the world's biggest Liverpool tournament. Like, I don't think you have the right to say that's a bad play. Maybe you don't understand the play.
Well, that's any competition, right? I mean, take anything, right? Take basketball, right? And you got people out there who are like, "Oh, what's wrong with this person's playing so terribly?" LeBron James, what an awful, or like Michael Jordan. You see that with the best of the best, and you have people that are sitting at home on their
They've like
couch,
never
like,
lifted a basketball up
right? And they're like,
themselves.
they would have done so much better if they ran this play, and it's like, okay, sure, So that you see that with any competition.
Yeah, that's part of sports spectating,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't really buy the like it takes so long to build a Pokemon unless you haven't played your game at all. There was a Twitch Rivals tournament that I was a part of, and part of the tournament was like a speed run part where like who can get through the game the fastest, and then the second part of the tournament was build a team to be a part of a competitive doubles VGC match. And they said that you weren't allowed to connect to the internet, you weren't allowed to do raids, you weren't allowed to trade with people, and you had to just do it all yourself. And you could spend as much time on it as you want, but you had to stream it. You couldn't like end stream and then like secretly build a Pokemon. Everything had to be live for the tournament the next day.
Yikes.
And let me tell you, if you thought if you thought Scarlet and Violet was like a short game, try to build a competitive team from scratch at the start of that game. I will agree that is very hard to do because like you just have no resources. And some of the stuff like, oh, I want like a choice band. Oh, that doesn't unlock until after you like beat the Elite Four. The store won't have it in stock until you do that. Like there are some things that are like gated by that. But the game right now is like 13 months out. Right? Like 14 months out. It's been around for a while. I would expect a lot of those players to at least play through the game, but I'm sure there's the argument of like I don't want to play through I don't want to actually play the game. I just want the VGC part of the game, which it is valid to an extent, right? But I think the last point that we see anytime somebody gets that cheaters are found cheating is the reason they cheat is because the game is pay to win and Pokemon are hard to get. Cool. So they're cheating because it makes it fair.
It's pay to win in the sense that you have to pay to start.
Where are they drawing the line at pay to win? Because there are so many more aspects.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has to buy the game. There's a start. Sure. There's a starting point.
So the first argument to the pay to win is, well, you have to buy the DLC if you wanted Urshifu, or if you wanted Ogerpon. So that's another $30, right? So they're considering $30. Like they're considering Ogerpon as like a $30 pay to win because Ogerpon is very good. She's a queen. She's great. She's like fourth most used at this recent tournament. I don't have it in front of me.
Nice.
That is awesome.
Urshifu, again, people consider a pay to win Pokemon. You have to pay $30 for the DLC to get the Cubfu. You have to evolve.
But you can trade. You can just
trade. You could trade. Yep. Yes.
That's what these people did with the Tinglu, which was available in the regular game. Makes sense.
So the only Pokemon that's in the top 10 that's not technically in Scarlet and Violet at all is Tornadus. You would have to move it from another game. You'd have to move it from Scarlet and Violet, or you'd have to move it from Sword and Shield or from Pokemon Go, and they are considering that pay to win. I disagree with this altogether, for the record. There's so many...
Pay to win? What? You can literally play Pokemon Go for free, and then you can go and use your free raid pass to get a free Tornadus.
So then this goes back to the argument of you shouldn't have to like play the game in order to be good at VGC because like, you know,
I can't keep going down this rabbit hole. This is awful. This is why I am no longer on Twitter or X or whatever it's called, because this is what happens all the time with these types of like, so they don't, okay, I'm going to stop. Just continue.
Yeah, I super disagree. Like in the situation with PokeAlex, and this is not any shade at PokeAlex, but to say like the game is pay to win and the dude spent probably well over $1,500 on a flight, and your argument is that the $30 DLC is the actual pay to win part. Like I just don't buy it.
His argument wasn't this, right? You're talking about like other people's argument. Like he's not arguing this is pay to win.
No. PokeAlex is not
just clarifying that.
I'm very sure that PokeAlex bought the DLC.
No, I was just clarifying that for everyone that he's not making that argument.
But it expands far into things like being able to afford a flight, being able to afford to get more sleep or better food, and being
able to afford the $10 Patreon to Wolfie to then get Wolfie's team to build that. Like
being able to afford the $70 to even enter the competition.
There is money here but the money here is any pro level sports related thing. Like think of like a bowling league. You could rent a bowling ball. You could buy your own bowling ball. I don't know how much a bowling ball costs, but I'm going to wait. gonna wager to bet that there's a very cheap pro bowling ball you can buy, and probably a significantly more expensive
That is correct.
bowling ball you can
Yes.
buy. You got to buy shoes.
Mhm.
You gotta pay for the lane. You gotta pay probably the club fee. I've heard that the club fees for bowling have gotten pretty expensive to be in. Are you near a good bowling alley? Are you not? There are advantages and disadvantages to like everyone's situation here, right? Like the reason Michael Phelps is very good at swimming is because he has like an extra like weird diaphragm thing in his chest. Like he has an actual advantage he was born with. The man knows how to swim very good.
And extra long arms, I think.
Yes, his arms.
Yeah,
are
I think
very
his
long.
arms are like longer
Yeah.
than. But anyways, going back to Pokemon, the argument like that Ogerpon and Urshifu are pay to win is just not like, it's just such a bad argument.
It's
Like,
a
I
very
think
narrow argument. They're only
Yeah.
looking at one specific thing.
like I get that in like Valorant or Apex or Fortnite, I just pick 3 shooters. Well, here, throw in Counter-Strike. Like there's 4 shooters for you. They're all different, right? There is no like you have to like build your character before you go into the match, right? That doesn't exist. Like you have skins, sure, but I think but I get that people are comparing Pokemon to those games. Like, look at these people don't have to actually play a like story mode of these games in order to compete at a high level.
Sure. Then they can play those games. I don't understand.
But I don't think that's a good argument either.
Right.
Because like this goes back to, you could just trade like Alex did. Hey man, I don't have a Tinglu. Can somebody get me a Tinglu tonight?
Yeah.
And
Well,
he got
okay.
a Tinglu.
I'm sorry, but the argument of pay to win for things like Ogerpon and Urshifu, that's fine. That's a fine argument. It's really hard to put it into this place where they traded for a Pokemon that isn't in the DLC. Like this was a cloned Pokemon that was not even in the DLC. It wasn't pay to play or pay to win, you know, like other than having to buy Scarlet or Violet. But otherwise, you know, this situation specifically, not a pay to win Pokemon. But I get that it's like a larger discussion at that point, you know. So
yeah, but like I think the other thing to keep in mind is like you could argue that like, oh, I had to buy Sword and Shield, and then I had to buy the DLC, and then once I did that, I was able to get Tornadus, and then I moved Tornadus into my own game, right? Like, imagine that there is maybe somebody who wants to use Tornadus and lives in the middle of nowhere, so Pokemon Go is not an option, and now they have to spend what, $90 to get Tornadus. I still think that's a really weak argument overall, because that would technically be the only way they would get Tornadus is
Unless they were having it traded from somebody generous.
right. But I'm saying that if they have no way to trade,
does
there's
this person not have
guess,
internet
but
access,
it's
but they're
so
somehow
easy.
playing tournaments online? What? I don't understand. This doesn't
yeah,
make
you
any
can
sense.
see this argument is falling apart. How are they practicing if they don't have internet and they don't? Yeah, you can see this is falling apart very quickly. The GTS is also there where you could trade.
Right. Does this mean do I need to transfer a bunch of Tornadus into home so I can start just trading them off with people? Is this? I didn't realize Tornadus was such a sought after Pokemon.
But, okay, but like then I think about like my Incineroar, which I caught or which I bred for in Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon. I used that Incineroar all 2 of the 3 years in Sword and Shield because it was not allowed the first year. And I'm going to use it in Scarlet and Violet probably for the next 2 years, because we would assume that Scarlet and Violet's going to be the competitive game for the next 2 more years.
One would assume. We'll see.
If we're counting DLC as its own game, you have the Scarlet and Violet DLC, you have Scarlet and Violet, you have the Sword and Shield DLC, you have Sword and Shield, you have Let's Go Pikachu, Let's Go Eevee, which, yes, you cannot get Incineroar in, but let's say you caught a Zapdos in that game, you could move it up. You got Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. That you got Legends Arceus, which again you could catch a Pokemon in there. That is 8 games ago, right?
Oh wait,
That's
hold on.
not 8.
Now you're holding up 7 fingers. So
No,
what are you
I know
talking
that was
about?
7 games, so that was the 8th game
Okay.
ago. Right?
Okay, got it. Okay, yes.
Because I got it from Ultra Sun,
Ultra
Ultra
Sun,
Moon.
correct. Okay.
So that
Yep, we're
Incineroar
following.
has lasted through all of these games, and I can still use it today, which is pretty unique to Pokemon and pretty cool. So I don't buy the argument of like pay to win at that level, because once you got that Urshifu in Sword and Shield, you can move it up and change its. They got berries, they got Moshi, they got mints. You can make the Urshifu however you want. Again, you can restart it. You already got it. Like, at the very core, you need to buy Ultra Sun, Ultra Moon to participate in tournaments. And back then, and before that, you had to buy Sun and Moon. The only difference between Sun and Moon and Ultra Sun and Moon were 2 Pokemon, and only one of them was good. It was Stakataka. No one was using Blacephalon. So yes, you did have to buy a $40 new game for 1 new Pokemon and participate. And then before that, it was X and Y. You bought that. That was the game you played for a year. Then you moved over to Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire and you played that for a year. Like,
Steve, you have to remember that there are also people who make the argument prior to PvP being a thing in Pokemon Go that Pokemon Go was pay to win. And there's not even anything to win in Pokemon Go. Like, prior to PvP is what I'm saying. So there wasn't an end game to it, and people were still complaining about it being pay to win. And so, I mean, I think these arguments are going to be made until the end of time. Even if they open up allowing cloned Pokemon, they're going to be like, "Oh, now you got to pay someone to clone it. Now you got to pay, if you don't know how to do it, you got to pay someone else to do it." Like, it's it'll be there forever.
The fact that people are going around being like, yeah, Ogerpon is pay to win, when it's like $30 is half. $30 for a whole game is half the cost of entering the tournament.
Yeah.
The tournament is $70 to enter.
And reaching out to friends who might be able to be nice and trade you a Pokemon is free.
Yeah. I mean, I'll give that not everyone playing competitively is going to tournaments, right? They're playing the stuff they can do online, right? And I could see people being like, "Oh, well, I'm not getting further into this because I feel like it's pay to win, and I don't have the DLC, and I don't get Ogerpon and things like that." So there are people who aren't paying to compete; they're just doing it through. I mean, they paid to get the game. We could go all the way back to the beginning on this, but
I got one more point. The number 1 Pokemon throughout this entire tournament and for past tournaments. Do you guys know what the number 1 Pokemon being used is?
I have an idea, but no, I don't.
I'm not going to be surprised by it, but no.
It is Fluttermane, who only appears in one of the 2 games. Well, technically, it did appear in both games this weekend.
I was going to say,
that was after 13 months.
Right now.
As of right now, yes. So if all of these pay to win people, if your core argument is, well, I don't want to trade, or like owning old games is unfair, what if at the start of this cycle you bought Violet? And your argument is like, oh, well, trading or owning multiple games is unfair. Okay, don't trade. Guess what? The actual number 1 Pokemon is in the game that you just didn't happen to buy because you had no clue. Like, I just don't buy your argument anymore. Right. If you're going to say that Ogerpon or Urshifu are the pay-to-win Pokemon, but literally the number 1 Pokemon is a version exclusive, and like that's not exclusive to Scarlet and Violet. Like, this happened in Sword and Shield. Guess what the number 1 Pokemon in that game was? Zacian. Guess who bought Shield? Me.
Zacian and Ogerpon are a little different because there's only 1 per save, and Fluttermane is not, but I still don't buy the pay-to-win argument. It's still structured off of the way our society is, and that's not going to be something Pokemon can change.
I guess the argument has been going back a long time, but the whole purpose, like Pokemon's built on this whole you need to trade with each other system. Like if you have played Pokemon for any time in the last 27, 28 years, the whole concept is to catch them and to trade them with each other, right? Like going all the way back to the very beginning. So, you know, it's a little bit like you can be mad about like having to do that, but it's also like you kind of know what you're getting into, like when
Yeah.
you come along to Pokemon. That's kind of
Even if you
part of
were
it.
a new player and you didn't buy Sword and Shield, so like you could argue that the current competitive scene you'd have to spend $90, and that $90 should ultimately carry you throughout the next 3 years. That's how it was for Sword and Shield, right? You spent $60 in the base game, $30 on DLC. Hopefully, you bought Sword and not Shield, and now that's your investment for 3 years of competitive. If for some reason this is your very first Pokemon game and you're getting competitive and you needed Tornadus, I guess you're up to like $180 because you had to spend 90 twice. But that's still cheaper than like joining a basketball club. It's still cheaper than playing bowling
Or the TCG.
You ever
Or
buy a
playing
tennis?
TCG.
You ever buy a tennis racket? Tennis racket's like $480, and I'm sure you can find a more expensive one.
Yes.
But Bobby made a great point, because we're about to switch over to TCG after the break. I played TCG competitively for 3 years. I promise you, I was spending minimum $200 every 3 months to play the TCG.
Yep.
That's why I never bought TCG. That's why I never got into the TCG growing up, because that one is very clearly inaccessible.
And here's my takeaway. I don't think when Wolfie won last week, anyone said, well, the reason Wolfie won is because he bought that $30 DLC and I didn't. That's why he won. I spent the $70 to participate in this tournament. I spent the $500 on the hotel. I spent the $1,000 flight, but couldn't afford the $30 ogre pawn. That's where I drew the line right there. It's just a ridiculous argument.
Yep.
I want to be in this bowling league, but I'm not going to rent my lane. I draw the line at renting my ball. It does suck that they got disqualified, because Poke Alex is a pretty good player, and my one time interacting with him, he was very nice. But
yeah, especially if they did get it from someone not realize, like because I was reading the tweets from them, or I think from Poke Alex, and mentioning that they were saying that they didn't realize, they just got it from a teammate and didn't realize. And if that is true, like that is a bummer, because then that's just on your teammate who knew what they were doing and maybe just thought like, oh, this isn't going to get checked, whatever. It's like not a big deal. Who knows? But if they legitimately got that as a trade, which we just went back to, like the whole purpose of Pokemon is trading, right? Like, so they're like trading to get the Pokemon that they were going to use. And it just so happened, and you wouldn't even know, like you said, if they didn't converse with their other teammate about that, or there's like, oh, they also have a Tinglu, but maybe aren't thinking like, well, we should check that it's not the same exact Pokemon. If that's truly what happened, like that is such a bummer, because, I mean, I guess it is on them at the end of the day, but it's also kind of tough. Like, it's individually in your game, and you're not really thinking like, well, I hope that person over there doesn't have the exact same one.
Yeah, there wouldn't have been a way for them to check, and that's one tricky part where it does get into relying on people. You really have to trust the person.
Yeah.
Which is tricky and unfortunate, but what I think people really need to take away from the continued disqualifications is just that Pokemon is checking for this as much as they can, and we know this, and we've known this. So, just generated Pokemon, hacked Pokemon, cloned Pokemon are not welcome in competition.
Yep.
Okay, we'll take a quick break, and then we're going to transition over. We're going to transition over to TCG, but not competitive TCG. We're done with the competitive stuff. There's a brand new set that came out. I opened some. I think Bobby opened way more than I did. So we will be right back. And we are back from our break. I used to spend $200 every 3 months on TCG. I don't anymore. But if I was to spend $200, it would probably be on this set because so far it's been pretty fun to open. There's no press release here, but Paldean Fates has arrived, which is, what do they call this? It's like a special
It's
mid-season.
like a holiday. They call it a holiday set, I think.
Holiday
usually.
set.
Yeah.
We talked about this before, how they featured Ceruledge as one of the shiny Pokemon.
Worst possible shinies.
Yeah,
It wasn't
really...
even just the Ceruledge either.
No,
They
four
chose the worst possible shinies.
3 of the 4 shinies on the pack art for the things are like not that different. Obviously, the Dondozo is very different, but
seeing how many shinies there are in the actual set, I'm almost wondering if that's because they don't want people to realize.
Yeah, there's a lot
that there are the shinies in here.
I think Tinkaton shiny's pretty good.
It is, but it's just a hammer, isn't it?
Yeah. It
yeah,
goes from
which is
silver to copper.
It's not super noticeable though in the pack art because of the way it's holding the hammer. Like it's not, the hammer is not the focus of the pack art. And then Pikachu is obviously a slightly golden, which I like. I think it's a cool shiny, and the shiny in the set's cool. But 3 of the 4 of them are barely noticeable.
Well, I think Tasaguri is hard too because there's 3 of them, and you're like, which one is this one?
Yeah.
So the set is out now, not the full set because there's going to be more.
Right. So they're doing this in 3 waves. So what released on January 26th was the Elite Trainer boxes and the 3-pack blisters. So the 3-pack blister comes with 3 packs of cards, a promo card, which is a shiny Pokemon, and then a sticker. They used to do coins back in the Sword and Shield era and prior, and they switched it to stickers. So it's
weird.
A sticker and the promo card. So you can pick either Fido, Mastiff, or Graveyard. And so you get a promo card of them, a shiny one, and then you get a sticker of shiny, one of those.
All the dogs.
And 3 packs. Yeah, all the puppies. And their evolutions are all in the set as like shinies as well. So, but those are the 2 things that released on Friday. In February, there's going to be February 9th will be the release of the tins. So mini tins, the bigger tins as well that contain like 5 packs, and the collection boxes. And then at the end of February 23rd, they're going to release the booster bundle, which is just a box that contains 6 packs of cards with no promo cards or anything else. It's just 6 packs in a box. So those are the 3 waves of release for this set, which is weird. They don't usually do that. They did it for like Crown Zenith. They released Crown Zenith for like 6 months. It was they had new Crown Zenith products that came out for every month for like 6 months. Even like mixed in with when Scarlet and Violet base set came out, they just mixed Crown Zenith in there and kept releasing Crown Zenith product. So I think it's kind of weird when they do that. But...
So I think this is the 3rd American shiny set. There was this is Paldean Fates, and then there was Hidden Fates, and then there was Shiny Fates, right?
Shining Fates, yeah.
And I would assume that these sets do pretty well because they are shiny focused. A lot of them are like reprints of cards that already exist, but now they have like the illustration rares and the special illustration rares. So I think those are super cool.
Yeah.
Bobby, you've opened way more cards than I have. I did open some for the audio listeners. I'm holding up a ETB. I bought this with my own money, by the way. No one. Sometimes Pokemon sends me stuff, but disclosure, I did pay for this. How do you feel about this compared to the past set, the hidden sets, hidden Fates sets?
Hidden Fates, Shining Fates. Shining Fates is tough to contend with because it was right at the height of you couldn't buy Pokemon cards anywhere. So
just
Shining
getting your
Fates
hands
was
on it was exciting.
yeah, it was exciting to get your hands on it. It was also frustrating because 95% of the time you weren't able to get go pick up Shining Fates. You just would see the ETBs popping up on eBay for 5 times as much and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That was frustrating. I would say I don't know how many shiny Pokemon are in Shining Fates, but there are a lot in Paldean Fates. There's like 137 shiny Pokemon cards in Paldean Fates. And that in itself is a little bit, with the fact that the Scarlet Violet era cards don't hold their value as much, it makes it a little tougher to want to buy a bunch of the packs when you could go buy the singles in a couple weeks for a lot less, because you're only going to pull 1, maybe 2 shiny Pokemon cards in a pack. Very rarely you pull 2.
There are
And there's 137 or
245
something.
cards altogether in the
Yeah,
set.
245. I think only 91 are actually like the set, and then everything else is shinies. And there's a few trainer, like full art trainer cards in the set. So I think it's fun to open. The pull rates are great. So I don't know how many hits you got in your Elite Trainer box, Steve, but
I got 9 hits out of 11 packs.
That's great. Oh, you got one
Yeah.
of? Did you get one of the Pokemon Center?
Yeah.
Elite Trainer boxes. Okay, got it. Yeah. Yeah, I think I had 6 hits in 9 packs. I mean, definitely a lot more than what you saw from Paradox Rift, and what you'll probably see from the next set that comes out, because the holiday sets they tend to stack them a little bit more, so you do get more hits in your packs than the regular sets. But I think it's been fun so far. I think it's better than Shining Fates personally. I do like the illustration rares, the special illustration rares. Those are cool. They didn't put very many of them in there, though. I will say there are 3 illustration rares and 5 total special illustration rares between trainers and Pokemon. So I do wish they had done more of those, because those are super fun. But otherwise, I think it's a pretty fun set. It's a good collectible set. I'm not sure what's super playable in it. I know there's a Chin Pao, which I think is pretty playable. There's a Mew. There's a shiny Mew, which is obviously a full art and a special illustration rare. I know those are playable. They also introduced gold, like a new type of gold card.
I saw that with the Miraidon. You
Yeah,
got it, right?
so they're gold and turquoise, or like gold and teal, which is different. I think it's probably a you either love it or you hate it kind of situation with that one. But those are cool in my opinion, and they have 6 of those in this set as well. So good set overall. I think people will be pretty happy buying it. A lot more chance of getting a hit of sorts. So
I don't think the card prices for Scarlet and Violet are gonna like dramatically increase anytime soon.
No.
I do wonder how much of. I guess I shouldn't say I wonder. Like I think we all have. I think in hindsight, and during it was very obvious that the reason Pokemon cards jumped up so much in price was literally because of the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
And people having extra money because they weren't going anywhere. They were stuck at home.
Right.
It probably also safe to say that Logan Paul did not help that situation at all in any way.
Yes, that's true. But the thing is that it's been very interesting to see how the Scarlet Violet era just has not kept up with the same pricing as the older generations. Maybe that will change once it gets closer to the end. And it's just so much harder because the price of everything went up. The price of all the products went up, but then the cards themselves are decreasing in value so much quicker. And so, if you wait a few weeks, it makes it tough to say, oh, go spend $100 on a couple elite trainer boxes, but the most expensive card in the set is not worth $100. And and it is now, right? There's a Charizard in this set, but to be fair with that, there's a Charizard in this set, and typically a week before the set comes out, the distributors get their stuff, and then some people are able to open stuff early, right? So you do see things pop up on eBay where people have opened cards a few days early or a week early or something, and they pull the Charizard or they pull the whatever the popular card is, and they go on eBay and put it up there. And earlier this week, that Charizard was going for about $300. They were selling for about $300 prior to the set coming out. Today, I checked it last night. Last night, they were selling, that Charizard is selling for anywhere between 150 and 160 bucks. 2 days into the set being out, that it's already dropped half, and it will, there's no doubt it'll drop to probably about $100 or less within a month. And it's not all about it's not obviously not all about money, but if you want to get the Charizard, are you going to go and spend $100 on opening packs and maybe getting it, or just spend $100 on the Charizard because it has dropped in value so quickly? So it's not like it's not all. It is kind of about money because you're buying this to collect the cards. So if you can go buy the cards for cheaper than the product, then it's hard to say go spend a bunch of money on the set, especially if it's not super. If the cards aren't super competitive. Because if it's not like you could get a bunch of competitive stuff, then it's also a bit tough to go buy packs to open when you can just buy singles.
Yeah.
I mean, that's always been the argument though, right? I mean, singles have always been kind of the way to go if you're playing competitive rather than opening a bunch of packs, just go buy the singles from.
That's always been the case. And it's not just the case in Pokemon.
Right. It's always been the case, but even from a collector standpoint now, it's just these cards are not holding value. Now, the cards in Sword and Shield era, they're still holding value. So that there's an Umbreon that's worth like $500, $600. That's still worth $500, $600. There's pretty much any of the evolutions are still worth.
The Leafeon is like $400.
They're north of $100 for all of the Alt Art Eevee evolutions. They held their prices. Sun and Moon era stuff, they're still holding prices for a lot of those cards, or have increased recently in times. Scarlet Violet is not. It's weird.
I guess what I'm hearing is just that the cards are slightly more accessible than they used to be. I'm still kind of enjoying watching the online market be decimated, because it was not fun to watch all of the stampedes and violence that happened around the prices of Pokemon cards, which we will talk more about. But I don't know, these cards, it really depends on where you get your joy out of it. If you're looking for a specific card either to collect or to play, then probably buying singles is still and kind of always has been the best way to go about it. But also, these cards are continually getting better in both in just sort of the enjoyment of opening a pack. The art looks better. The likelihood of finding a really cool card, I feel like, is higher than ever.
Yep. I totally agree. I mean, and I think the best thing you can do is you can have a nice mixture of, I like to open packs, so I'll open a bunch of packs. I will then go to my local card shop, trade what cards I don't want. I can, trade for stuff I do want, things like that. So, I mean, it's definitely a nice mix, and just the accessibility of the cards is great. I know people were worried with Paldean Fates. They were thinking, oh no, is this going to be like another Shining Fates situation where it's impossible to get? But I mean, I can open up various apps for stores right now and go pick up the stuff within an hour. I mean, Best Buy, Target, Walmart, the big box stores, they all have it in stock. There's not like a rush of it getting sold out, which is a nice change.
This is part and why the cards are not expensive.
Right. I mean, that's how it goes, I guess. If things are more accessible, they're printing more of it, then there's more out there, so they're not going to hold their value. Which, as a collector, I appreciate that, because again, I can go get cards, or I can go buy cards, and it's not going to be ridiculous and wild for me to go buy a card that I want. I actually enjoy the fact that the cards aren't like staying at $300, $400, $500 for, these cards.
Yeah, and Pokemon has never benefited monetarily directly from the secondhand market.
No.
They
So they
benefited
don't-
from the hype around it, but clearly the hype around it is not where it used to be. So I think what they're doing seems to be working, where more people can actually go out and get the cards.
Yeah, I mean, and you saw that from even Shining Fates. I was just having a conversation with someone about this the other day. You're still able to find Shining Fates in stores because they printed so much of it after people had like such a backlash to it being unavailable, that 2 years later, it's still sitting in stores because they were like, oh, well, now we printed a bunch of it. And everyone's like, well, we don't want it now. It's 2 years old. So it's just sitting.
Yeah, I mean, like the overprinting is nice for people who just want to walk in and buy cards, and it probably really helps with the impulse buy, because I think, I mean, I feel like that is how a lot of people get back into Pokemon cards, is like, I'm going to impulse buy, and now all of a sudden I'm back into this, and now I want to buy more. And then when you hit that wall of like, oh, nothing's in stock, I wanted to open up something tonight or this weekend, and I got to go online, and things are more expensive because it's hard to find, then you just kind of fall out of it.
Mhm.
I do think that's like a different conversation of what happened with the pandemic, where people weren't, I want to get back into this. It was more, how can I make money quickly kind of thing.
Yeah, there was definitely a huge uptick in that with the pandemic, unfortunately. But
I think there's another conversation to be had about the TCG and TikTok shop feeling like it's shoving TCG down your throat maybe I'm on that side of TikTok.
Maybe down your throat.
There are, all I'm saying is there's whether you see it or not, depending on your algorithm, there's a lot of people that are selling you Pokemon cards on TikTok shop.
and cheaper, from what I've been told, quite a bit cheaper. I stopped using TikTok a while ago, and so I haven't been a part of seeing it, but friends of mine have been buying cards on TikTok, and for quite a bit cheaper than you can buy them in a store.
Yeah,
some
TikTok shop has had a bunch of discounts going on for a very long time, and I'm not quite sure how they're doing
I don't know
that.
how that works.
Yeah,
I don't know why they're so cheap.
I don't know, but it's making things quite cheap, and it's weird.
I don't know how they're selling booster packs for so much cheaper than other places, but
I don't understand how even like the smaller card shops are doing it either, though. The prices all went up. The distributors did not lower their prices; they raised them when Scarlet Violet came out, and the shops are still selling them for the same lower prices as they used to sell like all the older stuff for. So I don't know if we're gonna like in the coming couple of years, either they're gonna shift away from having a lot of Pokemon stuff, these smaller shops, or they're gonna either raise their prices or they're gonna go out of business. But they're selling at what seems like not even a profit for them, which is very odd to me.
it is weird because like a lot of the card shops don't really make money on selling booster packs. They make money on like Friday Night Magic.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I guess it just
They
depends
like,
on where you're really getting your money from.
so that's the confusing part about like the TikTok shop, is like they're selling it for so cheap, and like sure they're buying bulk to like save money, but I feel like after shipping your margins are just so thin.
Mhm.
It's like, is it worth that? Because like a card shop, yeah, they can sell booster packs in between things, but they're still making most of their overhead from like events or tournaments or
Just
events
other stuff. They have other
things.
Yeah, they have other things they can sell. They're not just selling one type of product.
Yeah, I don't know.
Couldn't tell you. I have no idea how it works. Honestly, I
All
haven't
right.
looked too into it.
We thought this saga was over, but it will never end. Van Gogh will haunt us forever. This is off Pokey Beach. They've been following this for a while here. Titled Van Gogh Museum Fires Employees for Embezzling During Pokemon Collaboration. New details emerge. The Dutch newspaper Het Parool, I probably said that very wrong, has learned that at least 4 employees of Van Gogh Museum was fired last month due to embezzling during the October Pokemon collaboration. The museum did not say how many employees were involved, but the newspaper reports that at least 4 were terminated, including security guards, cashiers, and even a member of the cloakroom staff. One of the employees worked for the museum for 25 years. In a statement to the newspaper, the Van Gogh Museum confirms, quote, some employees from operational services, end quote, did not adhere to the procedures of code and conduct expected of staff. However, the museum regarded this as an isolated incident. The newspaper learned that one fired employee embezzled an entire box of the Pikachu promo cards. Other employees gave insider information to scalpers so they would know when the Pokemon Van Gogh merchandise would be in stock. The newspaper mistakenly reports this as the cards would be in stock, but corrected that it was the merchandise in general. The museum would stock the merchandise at random times to give visitors a chance to buy, meaning the insider information allowed scalpers to purchase their administration tickets exactly at the right times. And there's more here if you want to read on Pokey Beach, but I think that gives you the gist of what was happening.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm not surprised by this. Just because of how wild all of that was at the time. This isn't really surprising to me. I saw there was also information about people, like employees were buying things prior to the store being open or something. So it was in the article as well. There was talk about people were buying stuff or maybe selling stuff before. So there was receipts that would show this item was purchased at 8:45 in the morning when the store didn't open until 9 a.m. And I guess that was also a violation of sorts. Which I don't know. I mean, I've worked in places where people bought stuff before the store opened because they're working at the store, and so but this is probably a special situation since it was such a in-demand item.
Yeah.
But I can't say I'm like super surprised. It's a bummer. It's sad, but it's just there was a lot that went on in that time when that Pikachu card came out. There was
it's a whole mess.
Yeah, huge mess. So not super
one of the
surprising.
other things that this article quotes is saying when you make minimum wage, some will fold. That being one of the reasons some of the employees probably participated in some of this, which yeah. And then actually the funny part at the bottom, I thought not funny. They added photos from the anime that made it funny. Was that when they ended the card promotion, it was because there was a robbery outside the building by a bunch of 16-year-olds on bikes.
Yeah. So, and the people that got robbed were scalpers, apparently. So,
yeah.
So
it's just a whole mess.
Yeah. It's definitely a bummer.
There was a scalper that said, quote, there was always a line of people outside the museum waiting to buy the promos and merchandise. A lot of foreigners and kids were going in 5, 10, 20 times a day. Kids could get in for free, so they would sell us the promo for 70 to 30 euros and then go back in for free and get us more promos. I went in 30 to 50 times myself to get the card.
Those kids.
Yeah, seriously. Seriously. I mean,
when I was a kid, it was like you go to
lemonade stand.
You go to the store, you buy a 12-pack of soda for $3, and then you sell the cans for 50 cents. And
yeah, no, what it was here was when I was a kid, you would go to the donut place and get a big bucket, like paint-sized bucket of day-old donuts for $5 and sell them for $2 each in high school.
Wow.
Dang, that's the high profit margins on that. You should
yeah,
put that
but not
TikTok
as high
Shop.
as going into the Van Gogh Museum and coming out for $0, but getting 70 euros out of it.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I will say, when I was in middle school, my friend and I had a thing where we we basically invented a multi-level marketing situation where we basically just tell people like, hey, once you like hit a certain level, you can start asking for things too. And so if you do things, you get up and you level up. And once you get to a certain level, you get stuff. So there it happens. Whether you're when you're a kid and you find that opportunity, and then you start to realize, oh, this isn't these aren't good things to do. This shouldn't do these things.
Sometimes you accidentally start a MLM.
Yeah,
It happens.
it happens.
I don't. I think we put a lot of the blame on Pokemon when we initially talked about this, and like,
Yeah,
why doesn't the museum hire more security, or why doesn't the museum handle this? But it seems the museum was in on this, obviously. Now that
but it was two different situations, because when we were commenting on things back in October, and was that the last time I was on this show? I feel like Van Gogh Pikachu is now my thing for when I come on the show. We were talking about the people that were like scrambling to buy stuff, right? There was that video that came out where people were rushing the museum shop,
basically climbing all over each other.
Yeah, to buy the stuff. And at that point, it seemed like, well, they probably need more security. They probably need to organize this a little bit better. I feel like this is a little separate of that, because it sounds like that was much more coordinated. Whereas what we saw in that video there was no coordination to that.
That was the first day. And from my understanding, after the first day, they got it under control. But now we're reading that 2 security guards were telling scalpers when things were getting restocked and when they should show up.
Yeah, I mean, they saw the opportunity and they went with what was happening.
Yeah, I mean, they got kids going in there 30 to wait, because the kids have to go through the thing to get right. They're going in for free they had to go to the end to get the card at the end and all that stuff, right? That's what it turned into.
Right.
So these people are seeing the employees are seeing the same kid go into the museum 30 to 50 times.
Yeah, I feel like maybe after the 3rd or 4th time, you kind of catch on.
So yeah, I don't know.
You Steve, catch on after the first day when there are people climbing over each other trying to buy this product.
Right. But so I don't know if this is how it was for you when you worked at the Apple store, Steve, but when the iPhone was early, with the 3G, 3GS, the early iPhones, we'd have people, you could only buy 5 because people were buying them, and then they would sell them overseas because they weren't readily available.
They weren't released yet.
Yeah, they weren't released, and so they were selling them for 3, 4, 5 times as much as they actually cost overseas. We'd have people that would come in, they would buy 5 iPhones, they would leave, they would put on a different outfit and put on like a hat. And they would come back in an hour later, and I remember calling someone out, like, I was like, I just helped. I know I just helped you, but you have like a mustache on now or something, like literally disguising themselves to buy extra iPhones. Once that happens a few times, you kind of catch on. So it's like they had to have just been, there's the security, I guess, or whoever it was, just seeing these kids come in 30 times or whatever. And
I mean, it sounds like it was people throughout the entirety of the museum in all sorts of roles.
Because they did say 4 people were fired, but they didn't say that there were only 4 people involved.
Yeah.
I think the article did say that. So I do wonder, like, how many
museum
people
did not want to say how many employees were involved.
Yeah, how we're a part of all of it, and if it was just kind of the higher ups, maybe that, like, the people that, or whatever, or whoever, I don't know who. But it's interesting that only 4 people got fired if there were more people involved in it.
They were probably the 4 people who did things that were specifically against written rules and predetermined rules.
Oh,
this is a complicated situation, and they probably didn't have rules. Yeah, like take a box of the cards.
Take a box, yeah. I mean, I still think there's a lot of blame to be put on the Pokemon company. The easiest thing they could have done is just print more cards.
Which I think they're doing, right? I think the cards are coming back.
Yes, they're doing another reprint of cards.
Yeah. In certain shops in the Netherlands, we'll be able to get them and then give them out with purchases or something like that. But it seems like it's specifically there in the Netherlands.
Also, like when you pay people minimum wage and they can barely afford to pay
To
rent
live?
or get
Yeah.
groceries.
Yeah.
They just don't care. I remember when the I Choose You movie was in theaters, and that was the what card they were handing out a special Pikachu card for
Yeah, it was
that.
the Ash's Hat Pikachu
Ash's
card
had
that had
Pikachu
like the
promo card.
yeah.
And I remember walking out of the theater, and there was a whole stack of those Pikachu cards on where the guy takes your ticket. I don't know what that's called, where they like check your ticket to let you in. And I watched a dad just grab the entire stack and just grabbed it and kept walking as he left the thing. And like, yeah, that's a terrible thing for that person to do, and he should feel bad. Although he was very confused during the movie why the Pokemon said their own names, and he made that very clear when the credits rolled. He's like, I didn't understand why they all said their names, which is very memorable. But the employees working at the movie theater getting paid what, like $7.25 an hour. They don't care. Like, who cares if the cards go missing? Like, that doesn't come out of their paycheck.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Those cards are worth about $10 to $20 a piece now. Those I Choose You Pikachu cap cards.
I'm sure he didn't sell it. I'm sure they're in a landfill now.
Probably it's just that there are people who and then obviously the felt hat Pikachu is still worth a lot of money, but it's like people don't think it's like, oh, whatever, just cards. We're just going to print more of them or whatever. But then you go and look, and it's like, oh, well, if that person just took a stack of cards, that's possibly like $2,000 they're about to make, like depending on how many cards are in that stack or whatever. And it's just, I don't know. It's like a bummer to see that stuff happen. And obviously, like the employees are like, well, whatever, it's not our stuff. But it's like there are kids who were like want to come get that card. Like,
Yeah, it's a tricky situation in a few ways, but also
I
they're
want that card.
not
There are
paid
adults that
enough
want that card too.
They're not paid enough to get into a fight with some guy who just grabbed 100 cards.
Right.
Yeah, right. Like yeah, if you're the 16-year-old checking tickets and you see a grown man grab 20 sealed cards, like, what are you gonna do? Wrestle him down? You don't get paid enough for that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. In some, like in places you're not even allowed, like,
Yeah, you're
I
not
know
supposed to.
You're not even allowed to. Like, you have to let only security, because otherwise I think like you can get sued. Like if you hurt the person on the premises, then like they can sue the company for that or whatever, unless it's like security. So in some cases you just have to let them go. It's probably the safest decision, honestly, if somebody is stealing something, to probably not chase after them. Anyways, but still a bummer.
Well, we'll circle back in a month when we'll find out even more about the Van Gogh Pikachu. Hopefully
this is kind of it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think these events are cool. I think having a card to go with the event is cool. Hopefully they learn to do this better in the future, because I think this event was ruined for a lot of people.
Yeah, it was a really fantastic event that everybody was really excited about when it first opened, but it was a mess.
It was short-lived excitement, though. We only found out about it like a few days before it started, and then it immediately turned into chaos, and it was like, oh, well, never mind. This isn't as fun as it should have been.
Still real pretty art, though.
Yeah, art is good.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, let's wrap up with some Pokemon Go news. Nothing too exciting. First off, there is a visual change to Pokemon Go.
That's exciting.
I believe that. What?
That's exciting.
It's cool.
A visual change to the game? It's been like the same for 8 years.
I believe that's being tested in New Zealand right now. All the Pokemon Go website says is visual changes in the game. The Pokemon Go map, including encounter streams, are changing. It looks like they're based off biomes, so you'll kind of know what biome you're in when you encounter the Pokemon. I've seen a couple screenshots. It looks cool.
Yeah, some of them look really cool.
Yeah. I think it's funny you're saying in case you don't know what biome you're in, like, oh, I'm at the beach and there happens to be a beach scene in the game.
Sometimes sometimes
know
you don't
until
know.
until
When you're on the outskirts of
Yeah,
a city,
on the
sometimes you
line.
don't know.
Yeah, I am, and actually, I live in a situation like that where it's like right between two different it's like city versus I don't know whatever there's one that's like
Waterfront or something.
something like that. So it changes. It can definitely change. But still, I just if you're outside. Hopefully, you have some idea maybe of what biome you're possibly in.
I don't have this in the show notes, but they like redid the news tab or whatever in the game.
Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that?
I think it's better. Like how it's organized
Better
now.
too. It's a little.
That's the right way to go
different.
about it. I think it's better to ? There's
Yeah,
that little
well-
bit of hesitation where we're not quite sure.
I think I did like how before the middle tab was just really your the tasks that you had, and now it like just it's like, oh, there's a bunch of other information right there front and center now.
Mm-hmm.
And then the events tab, when there's not something there's not a timed research happening, there's just a lot of empty space because it just shows you what the next event is.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, there's like, I don't know.
It's a little confusing. It's a little visually confusing. Although
I
I
think it's
do
better.
really like how when there is an event going on, you can actually see what's happening just
Yes.
right there without having to scroll past all of the descriptions of the bonuses that are active.
Yes, I do like that, and I do like how quickly you can see how much time is left in an event just because of that,
Yes,
because
I
you're
like
not
that
having
too.
to scroll through a bunch. So I think overall, I do think it's better. It just was quite jarring when I opened my
Yeah.
app and was like, "Whoa, what is happening here?"
No, I'm looking at it now, and I do think it's better. I also it was I'm the person that has like the claim rewards like stacked up to like 100
Yeah,
because
nice.
it'll pop up and then I'll run away and I'll never catch it. And they made that like button smaller, which was like nice.
Yeah,
Nice.
it's a lot slimmer at the top now, or not as tall at the top.
And they have coins, gyms, your streak, and showcases all in the same spot, which is
Mhm.
great.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like maybe there should be a fourth tab. There's 3 tabs. Because I see what you guys are saying, where the today is like a lot bigger
Mm-hmm.
than events. But I don't think that daily activities should be under events.
No,
Yeah,
I
I
agree.
feel like those should be under something labeled today, but maybe honestly the daily research should be in its own tab.
Like the
the-
research,
Yeah, the research
tasking?
tasks
Yeah, that
should be in their own tab.
right. Yeah, because like Steve, the ones that are stacked up, those are not from today. Years worth of tasks.
Oh, I'm sure they go way past Korea. I'm sure there's some Korean hat EVs in there or something.
I think it was just when they introduced it, there wasn't a timed research happening, and so when you went over to the events tab, it was just like Porygon Community Day Classic was like the only thing there, and it was just all completely empty, and it was like, well,
yeah, I could see why it would
You
be
know.
empty for some people. Like I have the Expedition thing.
Oh yeah, you bought the tickets.
Yeah, well, I was gifted that one.
True.
I did get Taken Treasure. I did buy that myself for the $5.
I just
Oh,
have the Community
yeah.
Day Chansey on my
Oh.
screen
Oh
right now.
yeah,
So
yours
there's
is very empty. Yeah, no,
so I
Yes,
have the
has,
Taken
very empty
Treasure.
screen.
I can't see my screen, but I have the Taken Treasure one as well right now.
You
But
know,
yeah,
the reason why I bought Taken Treasure is literally if I'm going to be forced to do Team Rocket, I want more rewards. Like like that was it. Like if like I hate Team Rocket so much that I'm gonna spend $5 and I'm going to unlock this post.
They really got you there.
They did. I cannot. Whatever the like get from level 45 to 46 has ruined my enjoyment of anything Team Rocket related. You had to do so many battles to just level up, and it was a nightmare.
But it's easy. I don't know. I haven't had a challenge with battling Team Rocket in years. Not since the first week the bosses came out.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree with Steve. I mean, I'm also one of those people who it's like, oh, I really like having like the research task, like some kind of like research thing to do while playing the game. And so I know a lot of people are like, I hate that they keep adding these $2 tickets in for blah blah blah, and I'm just like, no, I'm good with it because like
Oh, I
it
like
just
having something to do. I just
makes
don't want
me
to have to pay for something to do.
I bet like I'm like yeah. I mean, well, sure, if it was not if you didn't have to pay for it, but like you do, and so I do. But like, you know,
no one listening is surprised that you pay for each one, Bobby.
Steve, you spend more money on Pokemon stuff than I do. I don't even know why people are always calling me out for spending money on stuff. You have like $1,500 worth of Pokeballs behind you.
It's true. I like them a lot. I think they're great. Some of the YouTube shorts paid for their own Pokeballs. They made enough ad revenue. It was like they're
But not
free
all
at
of
that
them.
point. Not all of them. Some of them. Yeah, I mean, like, I think the combination of like Shadow Kyogre, Shadow Ho-Oh coming back at the same time. I do like the pose that they had. So I think really this is the only money I've spent in January is $5. Everything else I either skipped or was gifted to me by somebody on my friends list, which is like I can't stop that from
Lucky
happening.
Steve
I'm like,
over
You
here.
can actually. There's a setting.
well, okay. Look, no one's turning that setting on. If people want to gift me, that's fine. I'll take the gift. I've definitely been in the position where I've been with people, and it's going to be like a Pokemon Go heavy day, and I have gifted them the like ticket. And maybe that's like the selfishness of me of like, oh, if they have the gifted ticket, they'll play longer with me. And it's like,
they'll actually play. They'll play more. But it could just be the feeling of they'll get more enjoyment out of the day. That's a generous feeling.
Yeah. Again, I said this last week. I don't think the Niantic is boosting tickets to make up for lost revenue. I think that's a very narrow way of looking at things. I think they're doing this because they would have always done this, whether remote raid passes were $1 or $2, unlimited or not unlimited. I think this was always coming to the game because it's just another revenue source for them, and I think it's easier to do that gifting that I just explained when you're playing with people versus like. I think that's a lot harder of a sell when it comes to raiding, and this is coming from somebody who does a lot of. Well, I don't do a lot of raids. I play a lot of Pokemon Go, but like, if somebody was like, "Hey, join this Darkrai raid," I would almost always say no. Like, I don't want to spend $1 on Darkrai. I don't want to spend $2. I have 3 shiny Darkrai. Like, I don't care about a hundo. I don't care about a shiny hundo. Like the only way I think I would like join that Darkrai is if the person who's asking me doesn't have a Darkrai and they're like, I need help with that Darkrai.
Yeah. That's the thing. That's when I join raids too. When somebody really wants to catch the Pokemon and actually might not have one yet.
Same.
But like I'll probably never do a Darkrai raid again. Just like I just don't need to. And there are even worse. But the Darkrai is actually kind of a good Pokemon to do. Like. Let's bring up the Reggies. Who I will like never need to do a Regice ever in my life, or Steve, like a Regigigas.
I have 40 Regice in my storage right now, and it took me 40 Regice to get a shiny Regice in Pokemon Go, and it barely looks any different. And I never want to see Regice again in my life.
Who pays more for Pokemon Go now?
Pokemon Go, I will say, but Pokemon in general, it's Steve.
That's true. This is like this is our last bit of Pokemon Go news. This is probably one of my favorite events they do every year, which is the Lunar New Year event. They're going to be introducing Drampa. Drampa also will be shiny right away. There will be an increased chance for lucky Pokemon while trading, increased chance to become lucky friends, additional candy for nice, great, or excellent throws, additional XL candy for the same thing. Magikarp, Dratini, Shuckle, Fennekin, Skrelp, and Noibat in the wild. If you're lucky, you'll find Jangmo-O. 1-star raids will be Dratini, Dino, Gumi. 3-star raids will be Druddigan, Turtonator, Drampa. Which It's kind of funny having like those 3 dragons in raids. I don't know if that was like the long con, but I do think that's like, I don't know. I kind of
They all
like
kind of
that
go together.
Yeah.
Well, it's like the first time, at least for like, it's the first time where I actually feel like, oh, I kind of want to do 3-star raids. Like, it's
First
always
time in a
usually
while.
it's like
3-star
usually the
raids looking
3-star
really
raids.
good this week.
Usually the 3-star raids are Pokemon that are evolved, so they can't be shiny. Like
Mhm.
they're usually just not. They have some purpose, I'm sure, that I just is not for me. But when I saw these 3-star raids, I was kind of surprised. Like, oh, I might actually do some 3-star raids.
For a while, the thing they had going on with 3-star raids was that they had the Pokemon in 3-star raids that would have been strong attackers for the 5-star raids.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
this time, they are Pokemon with exciting shinies.
Yeah. I will say, going back to the events tab thing, why isn't that event in the like upcoming event? Like, there's an upcoming events section, and it
Yeah,
only has the Chansey Community Day in it. Why not
yeah,
put the Lunar New Year's event
it
and
should be there. And I
put
think
a
that's why I
couple
was
in
a little
there?
unsure about this change, because their communication has been kind of iffy for the last, since they laid off 200 people.
Yeah.
And that should be there. There is a blog post for this event. They should have that event in
Well, and
the
you can
upcoming
go
news in
to
game.
news and you
Yeah,
can actually click on it and look at the blog post.
yeah.
And it's like they have the infographics now that they're making. They have all this stuff. Like you could just put that in there and be able to click it and have the infographic pop up or something. Like,
Yep.
and it could be right there. Like it's there
Yeah, and this
waiting
is
for this.
happening in less than 2 weeks. This is happening in 1 week.
Yeah.
February
It's
5th
happening.
it starts.
Yeah, it happens right the day after the Chansey Community Day. So they could put it right in there with it.
There will be paid research. Don't you worry.
Yes.
Don't your little wallet worry. For
Awesome.
$2, you will get Stardust XP, 2 lucky eggs, encounters with event-themed Pokemon. That's all it says. That doesn't seem that great.
I mean, $2 is also one of the less expensive tickets.
Yeah. There's no clothing. It
What
doesn't
does a
look
lucky egg
like.
cost these days? Lucky eggs
Lucky egg is 80 cents. So you're spending 40 more cents for unsure. This is where I don't like the special research. Like, if the special research is always something I'm going to buy, but I'm saving money, then it always feels like not like a deal, but like compelling,
Mhm.
like a sale, I guess, of like, if it was like 3 lucky eggs, which why is it not 3 lucky eggs? It would be like, okay, 3 lucky eggs is more than $2, so I'm going to get 3 lucky eggs anyways. I'm saving money there. I'm also getting bonus XP. I'm also getting bonus Stardust, and then I'm also getting encounters with event-themed Pokemon. So it's probably like what, a Drampa, a Druddigon, and a Turtonator, you would assume.
With
So,
better IVs than you would be able to get in the wild.
right.
Yeah, I mean, when you even talk like that, like with if it is like Drampa, Druddigon, or whatever, like those are raids you have to do, right? So now you just if you're other than your daily raid, now you're also like that's $1 like to go do a Drampa and a Druddigon raid like in the day or whatever.
Yeah.
So then you're saving there too, I guess, or it's a deal, part of the deal.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll see what it is when it arrives. Speaking of communication, maybe they should communicate a little bit better where my $2 is going. I would like to know beforehand instead of relying on like Leak Duck to be like, oh, okay, is this actually worth it?
Yeah.
There will also be a global challenge. So if we get, what is it? How many
1
zeros
billion.
is this? Is
It's
it a
1 billion.
If we get 1 billion nice throws, we will unlock bonuses for all trainers to enjoy. They're saying the first one is a ground, second one is a ground, third is a fairy, fourth is a dragon, and the last one is normal. The last one's Drampa, right? Like this.
Right.
And then there will be different spawns in the wild. There will be a question mark 1-star raid and a question mark shiny 3-star raid.
Yeah, it's interesting to note that of the global challenge wild encounters, 6 of the 7 can be shiny.
Yeah,
Looks like the 7th one can't be shiny, whatever it is.
probably Jangmo-O still, depending on if they're
Yeah.
just going to extend the original encounters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're saying the 1-star cannot be shiny either.
Could be Jangmo, maybe
Probably
Jangmo's
Jangmo,
and
right?
1-star
Yeah.
raid then. which would be cool. Have him in 1-star raid, I guess.
Unknown D for dragon. Cannot. No, that should be shiny.
Yeah,
We
that's
completely skipped over the quality of life improvements.
Oh, do you want to go over those?
I would love to go over the quality of life improvements because these are actually giving me hope. So they haven't been. I guess they were officially like they made a blog post saying some things are changing. One of the things is the biomes in the background, but another one of the things is that they are both adding buttons to revive all and heal all Pokemon in battles when you're in gyms, so that's going to make that a lot faster. And they are also adding a ready button for a single player, or at least they're testing. They are testing the introduction of a ready button for single players in raids after, I believe, 30 seconds of waiting in a lobby on your own. So you don't have to wait out the entire timer when you're just doing a raid by yourself, which I think is honestly huge. And the introduction of actual quality of life improvements like this does make me feel a little bit more hopeful that they're working on that this year. Instead of just going, we need new things, new things, new things, new things, they're actually starting to improve some of the things that actually exist.
Yeah, that's pretty nice. Did you see the other one the other quality of life improvement that like just it's showing up for some trainers now as of like last night? They show type effectiveness against grunts
Really?
and
Yes.
raids now.
Yeah.
And so it'll show your moves and whether it's super effective or not very effective. It's only showing up for some trainers, but as of like last night, it just started coming out too. So yeah, nice to see some of that stuff finally come through.
Also, this is not new, but it is a quality of life. Just a reminder that you can download the assets. Again, not new at all. But if you go into your advanced settings in your game, this is both on Android and Apple. This was something Harry Potter had, which was like Harry Potter had it since day one, and it was like, why isn't this in Pokemon Go? But if you go into your advanced settings, you can hit the download all assets. Just make sure you're on Wi-Fi and you're at home. And you can download pretty much all like the images that make up the Pokemon or make up the Pokedex or just make up the game files in total. It does take a bit of space on your phone, just a heads up there, but it makes your game run way smoother.
Yep.
So this might be very useful to somebody who's like an older phone.
And if you've clicked that button before, you do have to go in and kind of click it again every once in a while because they keep introducing new things and they don't automatically download.
Yeah, it doesn't automatically download. But even if you do it once and you forget about it for like 6 months, it's still like you're downloading.
Still totally worth it.
You're downloading the bulk of things. So, yeah, I would say that it's kind of cool that there's all these little things that they're doing: the biomes, the Team Rocket stuff, the revive all, the changing the today view. All of these have kind of happened in the last like 2 weeks. And it's shocking because like it's all positive stuff that they've been doing.
Yeah, right.
So hopefully there's more to come because they haven't really put out like I would expect, well, maybe not because Niantic's very bad at communication. I would expect them to put out a big blog post of like, here is a bunch of quality of life stuff we've done. It's all been finalized. It should be rolling out to all trainers. Because obviously, if you're not in New Zealand right now, you don't know what the biome stuff looks like unless you go online and look it up. But hopefully there's a big update and there's even more stuff coming. I would hope. We have what's it? The Sinnoh tour in 3 weeks.
That already 3 weeks away.
I think it's less.
Wow.
17th, I think it is.
15th?
15th is
17th and 18th.
17th and 18th. Okay, the weekend after Valentine's Day.
Yes, because I'm flying on Valentine's Day.
Nice.
Ouch.
It was the cheapest flight. Niantic ain't paying for me, so. That's pretty much our show for you all today. I had that, there was boosted outbreaks for Scarlet and Violet, but by the time this goes up, that'll be gone. But they did put Fluttermane and Iron Jugulus and Raids. They did Rare Mark boosted. The cool thing about the boosted outbreaks, real quick, was just you could get the opposite version. Skrelp, Gulpin, whatever versions they were exclusive to, they appeared in both games, and vice versa. There's 2 other Pokemon, Stunky and Clauncher. So they all 4
you didn't have
appeared.
to pay to win. You didn't have
No
to
pay to win
anymore
there
because they swapped them for you.
Yeah, finally, you can get your competitive Stunky without needing to trade or pay for the other version of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Papa Pikachu looking out for those competitive players. You don't know more hacked Stunkies for anyone. Could have Rare Mark or the other one. I don't know. Perfect. Hey, we did 600 episodes. I did a post on Patreon how my life has been tough for me. I did a post on Patreon, and there was a lot of deadlines I wanted to hit with 600 that I wasn't able to hit. One of the things I wanted to do for 600 was to go back and listen to the very first episode and provide commentary on it. I don't know what that's called besides providing commentary. You know, like on a Simpsons DVD where they're like, "Oh, let's watch the episode together, and I'll give you behind." I think it's just called commentary,
like a director's commentary or something like that. Yeah.
So I did that. It was only a week late, which isn't the worst, I guess. So that's up on Patreon on the exclusive premium feed. Also, if you're in Apple Podcasts, it's there too. Apple Podcasts is really cool because if you're on iPhone, you can just do a two-week free trial. You could listen to all the bonus episodes. You could cancel it. Or if you want to keep it, you get ad-free episodes every week, so you don't have to listen to the ads. You get all the bonus episodes when it comes up. So there is value to the Apple Podcast. Obviously, make Apple. If there's any company that makes it very easy to give you money, it's Apple. But support it. Like if you do subscribe on Apple Podcasts, that does. I do, that does benefit the show. Obviously Patreon does as well. So there was a real good response to that. So I guess I'm going to do another commentary episode for February as well. Awesome. For Patreon people. Probably won't be episode 2 because we cannot do once a month, one episode at a time. We'll never get through it. So I'll try to find a
called job security, Steve.
Just me
How
every
long
week.
Is 600 months.
I'll eventually catch up. I'll just do it every week, where I have to. I think that episode is so enjoyable for probably other people to listen to. The first 5 minutes of that podcast of me listening to myself 14 years ago was the hardest thing I think I've ever done. It was the most cringy thing that I felt. First off, I sound like I'm out of breath in that episode. It sounds like I ran on a treadmill and then I decided to whisper into a microphone at 4 a.m. It was. If that's worth $5 to you, patreon.com/PKM PKMNcast. I don't know why I sounded out of breath. It was very hard to get through to be like, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know if I can listen to myself 26 minutes and post this. I think it turned out okay. I think it was very fun. So that's on Patreon now. I'm going to assume that there's going to be a 7-star raid announced tonight since it's been 2 weeks. So if you're listening to this on Monday, I'll probably be doing raid builds on Monday. If you can't make it over to Twitch, it'll probably go up on YouTube for you to watch on Tuesday or Wednesday for whatever 7-star raid it ends up being. I don't know. Actually, at this point, maybe they're saving Blastoise and Venusaur for Pokemon Day. But maybe Blastoise, maybe Venusaur, maybe Torterra, who knows? I don't know what they're doing.
Who was it? It was just Blaziken, right?
It was just Blaziken, yeah. If they do like Sceptile, it's gonna be Dragon type, right? Like that's like
Has to
That's
be.
that's the obvious for Sceptile.
Yeah. Which would be good during Lunar New Year time frame.
Ooh,
True.
In 2 weeks.
That
or
would
next
be
week.
that would be true.
I don't
I
even know
should
what
just
date it
start
is.
building for Dragon Sceptile right now. There's no way that Sceptile isn't anything but Dragon.
Sure. Have they done raids in the past? I'm just trying to think of like a mega Pokemon whose type changed, or like who got an added type,
Charizard.
and then Charizard, but they did dark type Charizard when it came
No,
out.
Charizard was Dragon for the first 7-star. They
Oh,
gave
sorry.
us a free.
I'm thinking of the TCG.
They gave us a free Dark Terra Charizard as a gift to line up with the TCG as a mystery
Okay.
gift. Yeah.
That was it.
Right. But the first one was Dragon. The first Charizard was a Dragon Terra.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So then patterns.
Yeah.
Sceptile will be Dragon.
No, Sceptile has to be Dragon. Has to be. Wait, what's the other? Was it Trico, Mudkip, Torchic?
Yeah, so it'll be Swampert, but
that's the same.
it's the same.
Mega,
so,
right?
Yeah. What was Blaziken?
Blaziken was flying, which
Flying,
makes
okay.
sense because it's a bird.
Kind of.
Okay. It's a bird that can't fly.
It's a Blaziken.
I mean, sure. Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for listening. If you're watching on YouTube and you've made it this far, what Terra type do you think makes the most sense for Swampert? We would love to know.
Flying.
I don't know. I don't know. I think the flying for Blaziken makes sense, and I think
It
the
does.
dragon for Sceptile makes sense.
Well, the Dragon for Sceptile absolutely makes sense.
Yeah.
Flying for Blaziken, sure.
Sure.
I'm not arguing with you.
It does make sense.
I don't know
It's
what
just-
would make sense for Swampert.
You said it's a
Maybe
bird.
fighting?
You said Blaziken's a bird, but like it's a chicken. And chickens
Yeah.
notoriously they can like fly for a moment, but they can't fly. If chickens don't fly, they like
But it's still
like-
a bird.
jump.
It's not a
And
bird.
so
Look,
is
I don't know how Dodrio can fly because it can learn the move fly. But come on, let's just go with it.
fine.
All right. We will be back next week. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Hannah. This has been another episode of the Pokemon Podcast, and we are
Super effective.
Super far past whispering into microphones at 4 a.m. most of the time, unless Steve is in like South Korea or something, and then you're in a hotel whispering into a microphone at 4 a.m.
but
Again.
a fancier microphone.
The clip of Steve getting excited about Cramorant being in the Kitakami DLC while in a Japanese hotel or wherever you were that you didn't want to make noise, but Cramorant was like showed up on the screen and you like lost it, but like in a way you like lost it in a whisper was wonderful.
Peak Twitch was the highlight of my Twitch career right there. All right, we'll see you guys next week.